catch 100 of these in one day. And we just caught 30 of them to catch a release day. So we usually save these white bass trips for a day. We really enjoy this. Let's go. Hey guys, what's up? It's Connor from UHD OOW Outdoors, and today I'm going to be answering a question given to us by one of our subscribers. And this question's come up a lot, but I don't know why we've never answered it. Mainly partially because last year, we were actually trying to figure this out too. And we figured it out pretty good, so we'll give it away to some of the guys who are still trying to figure this out. But it's all about the white bass spawn, or the striper spawn, the hybrid spawn. You know, in my opinion, they pretty much happen at the exact same time. So what you got to understand is the white bass striper hybrid family, they are open water fish, meaning they do not live around trees, they do not live around shallow things. Okay, like a bass would. Like, you can't find them under lawns, or you can't find them in seaweed or anything like that. They're out in the middle of the lake. They chase bait fish around. They work in a pack of 20 plus fish that they work together to basically surround their bait fish, and they eat them that way. Okay, it's not like a largemouth bass that sits behind a tree and it waits for food to come by and rushes out and he grabs it. That's not how the white bass and stripers work. Stripers, the striper family, that's what I'm going to say, they work like a wolf pack. They will chase their prey down, and they'll pretty much come in from all angles, or they'll push them up against like a cliff, an underwater cliff, and somehow the bait's going to hit this dead end essentially, and that's how they're going to catch their food. So that is what they do midsummer to early fall. That's what they do. Okay, so if you're going to catch them during that time of year, more than likely you're in deep water with advanced electronics, and you're going to catch them 30, 40, 50 foot down sometimes. Okay, that's the nature of the fish. That's how you're going to catch it. But the question surrounds pre-spawn and spawn. So the fish has to go from deep water to running water, and that's the key. The key is running water, or water movement. Somehow these fish, they're not like other fish where they'll make beds and they'll guard their little eggs and things like that. These fish, they run upriver and they do their business in little pebbles and rocks, and then they go out. And the eggs basically float with the water, with the current, or they can actually settle down in the little rocks. And a couple of days later, they hatch. And the little fish, they're all on their own from day one. There's no mom and dad guarding them. So that's basically the life of the stripers and the white bass. At least that's how I understand it. Okay, so, and that's the cycle of these fish. So if you're going to try to catch them, you have to understand that cycle. And like I said, that last 30 seconds, I made that really, really easy to understand. But there's a lot of science behind it. There's a lot of water temperature, air temperature, that type of stuff might play a role. But what you're looking for is, a lot of people are interested in this time because they're bank fishermen. And I'm pretty sure that's why this guy gave me this question. He's probably wondering how come I can catch him during the springtime, early spring, and then where'd all the fish go, you know? So the question is, where can I find these fish? Where's the best spot to find these fish? So that's also going to depend on whether you have a boat or if you're just bank fishing, okay? But I'm going to give you my information based on my experience. So when you're searching for white bass, you get your gear ready, and first thing you look for is that first warm front, or warm springtime weather. For the guys that don't understand fishing terminology, is when, to me, it gets really good when you start seeing, well, put it this way, depending on where you're from too, because the white bass, they go from Texas all the way up to Wisconsin. So when you first see that 20 to 30 degree jump from winter, that's probably the best time to start looking for these guys. Okay, and if you're willing to chase the spawn from where they come from deep water all the way to where they're in 2 feet of water, these are kind of the hot spots that you're going to have to check. So in the main lake, there's always like rivers that flow into this lake. Or if it's a main river, it's the same thing. You can treat that as the main body of water. The fish usually don't spawn in the main river or the main lake. They usually go up some type of a creek arm, okay? So during the pre-spawn, they are at the mouths. They're in the staging areas. And to me, a staging area is a spot that's still pretty deep compared to what you're dealing with. So if it's a river, it might be just the deepest part of the river. Or the deepest part of the river that's right at the mouth of the creek. Okay, that's a real good spot to check. If you're on the boat, obviously if you're on the bank, that might not be accessible to you. So just keep that in mind as well. I mean, you might get lucky, you know, you might have a point that goes out that is bank accessible. And at that point in time, more than likely, they're not on that topwater bite yet. They're still, you still got to catch them on like jigs and crappie jigs. Okay, we're not talking full-blown bass jigs. Crappie jigs and swimming baits, small stuff. But those would probably be the two that I would throw if I was chasing the pre-spawn. And then you get into that time where it's right at pre-spawn and some are starting to spawn. So this is where people are starting to catch fish. At the dams. The dams is a really, really good idea. When you first catch your first white bass or striper at the dam, the spawn basically has started, okay? It has started. But that doesn't necessarily mean every fish is now up there. It's just the early comers, or the bucks, you can say. You'll catch the small fish first, and usually you always do. And I'll mention size and quality of the fish as well. But when you first catch the first white bass, they're usually pretty small, 5 inchers, 6 inchers, occasional 7-inch, but nothing really good. You know, you're not going to get that 1 pounder anytime soon. But as the weeks go by, and it usually happens fairly quick. It usually doesn't last 2 months. The spawn, from what I've experienced, is a good solid 3 weeks of actual spawn, with maybe a 1 week before it of you catching like early birds, and maybe a week after of like the late comers. But that's pretty much it. So you could almost say 5 weeks of fishable spawn, but really you want to concentrate on that 3 weeks. And you have post spawn, which all the fish go back out, and you're pretty much now just catching catfish. At least that's my experience. So let me run you back a little bit. You got the pre-spawn, fish are staging, they're ready to go up, right? But they need a trigger. There's always a natural trigger that will cause the fish to move from the deep water into the creek channel, or all the way up to the dam, okay? These white bass, typically, the mega schools, they don't live in the rivers. They'll live in the main bodies of water. But as it gets cold, it's wintertime, spring starts, they still need that trigger, some type of a trigger. In the springtime, I see this year after year. And the trigger is usually a massive thunderstorm of some kind. Something that's going to bring the rain down. Because if you pay attention to the water temperature, it might be 65, but if you have a major rainstorm, say it's a 90-degree day, a major rainstorm comes by and it starts kind of flooding everything, that water will jump from 65 to 75 real fast. And the other thing is, these fish need current to lay their eggs. They basically lay their eggs and they wash downstream. You can almost say that. So with that being said, they will not lay their eggs until there is current moving. And if you're in the creek, if it ain't raining, more than likely you don't have any current. So be on the lookout for that. So you're looking for natural triggers. Rainstorm number 1 is usually pretty good. Rainstorm number 2 is usually better, and you might get a third rainstorm where you're at the tail end of the spawn, and after that you pretty much catch up with it. Okay, so that's been true for dams and everything. So if you think back, especially in Oklahoma, so this is where my experience is coming from, Oklahoma area, Arkansas area. There's always the 3 major rainstorms, and those 3 major rainstorms always produce the best fishing. And it's also pretty dangerous, and there's a lot of tornado activity and things like that, so kind of be careful. But you know, year after year, those major rainstorms, they always are the trigger. And once it rains and it's real muddy, more than likely, you have to go to those really chartreuse colors or just pure black lures so the fish can find it. But that's when the best fishing usually happens. So I hope that answers your question. And if anybody else has a really good question they'd like to ask, just send it to us. Leave it in the comments, and we'll pick one and we'll do our best to answer it. But that was a really good question because not a lot of people were able to answer that, and it took me a couple of years to figure that out. And even through like all the triggers and things like that, I had to learn that the hard way, just by user experience, you could say. That's very specific to where I live in this area. Okay, so that might not work in California, that might not work in Wisconsin, but I don't know, maybe it does. But anyhow, if the question helped you out, give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel, of course, if you haven't. And if you have any questions, just put them in the comments. And if your buddy doesn't know the answer to this, well, tag him, share it with him, and hopefully he becomes a subscriber as well. Thanks for watching. Connery from UOW Outdoors. Bye.